Welcome to DAExMachiNation. Join us as we explore the mysteries of this world. Cryptids, monsters, macabre tales, and horror stories abound. Could they be true? Are monsters real?
Good evening, folks, and thank you for joining us on another edition of DAExMachiNation. I'm doing my best to keep a straight face because our guests tonight, Ryan and JT, didn't realize that we could hear them the entire time during the countdown.
You know how we are.
We were hoping.
I was dying, guys. I was like, I wonder if they know I can hear them. So I texted you, Ryan, and I guess you didn't see it. I was like, hey, I can hear you guys.
We didn't.
Yeah, you know.
But we're okay.
I don't know why, but yeah, I can hear you guys fine over the music.
Ryan's like, man, I like the porn music.
I'm already.
Hey, you can't talk for a minute and a half.
I'm sorry.
No talking. But anyways,
Folks,
I'm Ryan.
JT.
You guys know our usual cast of suspects: Robbie Jed Raines, Carrie Pocket Doc Davis, and Steve Wildman Monrotis. But Ryan and JT from the Horror Chronicles are joining us tonight. And if those of you who've been around with the channel for a while know these idiots have been on a few times before, and it's always a riot. We're always cracking each other up, and once in a while we actually talk about something that has to do with the subject. But we'll try to keep you guys entertained and informed, and we'll see how many times we derail this train. Boys, tell us a little bit about Horror Chronicles for the folks that are new to the channel.
Well, I mean, so we are, Ryan, JT, and we started the Horror Chronicles it was what, 6 years ago?
Feels like 85 years ago.
But yeah, man, we love horror and paranormal and cryptids and everything crazy like that, And then we just, do you know what? To a podcast, started a podcast, and kind of what we did. Get into, I'm kind of more of into cryptids and stuff like that. JT's more of the horror movies, paranormal stuff. We're both like paranormal, but he's more of the horror movie.
Yeah, I'm really big into haunted houses and horror movies and stuff like that. And it was kind of funny the way this all happened for Ryan and I. When we met, we started talking about music and found out we had an interest in music. We're both metalheads, and just got to talking one day, and all of a sudden Ryan's like, hey, do you believe in ghosts? And all of a sudden it was like, we've been friends ever since.
Did we just become best friends?
Yeah. It was really funny whenever he approached me with this idea. We had been friends for a while, and he said, hey man, what we talk about this kind of stuff all the time. What do you think about doing a podcast?
No F-bombs.
And I was like, what's a podcast? and he said, oh, here, get your phone out. Let me show you, and that's really how it happened. And I just kind of figured out how to make it work.
And then through that
made
process,
a show out of it.
And through that process, we met a lot of cool people like DA. We get to meet you guys tonight,
Learn to hate each other.
Yeah. Didn't this sound familiar?
Yeah.
Maybe.
I'll tell y'all something about JT. If you guys have seen the movie National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, when Clark Griswold decorates the house, that's his house on Halloween.
Yeah.
He hand makes all of it.
I'm a Halloween freak.
That's
it actually decreases the power grid for the local city when he fires it up.
Angie has more Halloween decorations at our house than we have Christmas decorations.
Yeah. Our neighbors are like, they see our house at Halloween, and at one time we had a little old lady that lived across the road from us, and the first couple of years we were here, we started finding pamphlets from the church on our porch and stuff like that, and I don't ever do anything.
Everybody's crossing themselves and they walk by your house.
Yeah. My wife would be like, if we do this, if we put this display out, there's going to be a prayer circle in our yard. We're like, yeah, well, let's try it and see what happens, And my wife keeps me roped in. She won't let me do a lot of crazy stuff that I want to do.
Just mix up some fake blood and hose them down when they try it.
Yeah. But anyway, we have a good time, and then come Christmas, you've got one little strand of Christmas lights hanging out in the yard, and it's total darkness. People are like, okay, you can't even see your yard for all the Halloween stuff, but yet you don't do anything for Christmas.
My Christmas decoration was I got one of them white wicker deers, and I hung it upside down and took a big string of red Christmas lights.
Nice.
Let it fall out like I'd gutted a deer in the front yard on Christmas.
I like that.
I telling them just freaking buy a bunch of Christmas hats and put it on all the other decorations.
On all the
Exactly.
skeletons. Yeah.
Leave the skeletons out there. Just put Christmas hats on them and scarves.
Why the heck not?
If you could see our studio here, our studio is covered in Halloween stuff. So I've always been into horror and creepy stuff.
I picture the church ladies league like knocking on the door of JT's house, and he just hisses at him and starts speaking Aramaic.
Yeah, well, not quite. Not quite.
He speaks something. I don't know what it is.
Ooh, I need to send you the video of the cryptid.
Yeah.
Cryptid video.
What kind of cryptid video?
So I've got these surveillance cameras on my house, and I used to be a smoker. I've quit smoking now, but I used to go out on my front porch and smoke. And I stepped out on my front porch one day, and one morning, I'm standing there smoking my cigar, and I let out the loudest grizzly bear fart you've ever heard in your life. And when I checked my surveillance camera, I'm like, oh my God, that's awesome. So I posted it out on YouTube, and I'm like, hey, check out this cryptid I caught on camera. And you would not believe the response I got from that video. It's insane. I think it ended up on one of those Facebook pages, like Farts of the World or something. Or like, it was crazy.
Amazing.
It was obnoxious.
Oh God.
Why does that sound like something we'd do?
It does.
That is amazing.
I'm beginning to question the authenticity of Jed's video now.
Hey, that is a howl, not a fart. If
So
I
when
could
you
fart,
started-
Steve, if I could fart that way, I'd be on Guinness Book of World Records.
So when he
If you
started
could fart
talking
that way,
about,
you'd be in my hospital.
when he started talking about Christmas vacation, I thought he was going to tell you I was Cousin Eddie.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas, shitter's
There's
full.
I was waiting for that, actually.
Dinner's full.
Yeah, we come up with some pretty good ideas, talking about cryptids.
Yeah.
We had a good idea, and I think we actually involved DA in that too. We were gonna go hunting for Bigfoot, but I was gonna dress up like a female Bigfoot. And
You're gonna be Little Spoon, is what you're gonna be.
He can say,
take one for the
Hi.
team.
I'm Patty. How are you?
Well, we were kind of going for some Bigfoot erotica there,
And you don't have to be lonely at cryptidsonly.com.
We've derailed this show already. I'm proud of
I
ourselves.
don't think we ever hit the rails. For me dying laughing, listening to you two talk while the intro song was rolling, I was just over here just like cracking up. I'm like, I wonder if they know we can hear them.
Not we. I couldn't hear anything.
We did not. If we would have known you could hear us, it would have been way
Only
worse.
DA could hear it.
Yeah.
Oh, only I can hear it. Okay, well that explains that.
You're welcome,
Because I've
DA.
got the host clearance,
You're
but
welcome.
You're welcome.
I thought for sure that was going out. I was like waiting for people to start commenting, like who's talking.
Yeah, this show literally just launched like Kim Jong-un's destroyer.
No, but we have talked about we've had DA on our show to do some cryptid episodes and stuff, and I'm not sure where all of you guys are. I know where DA is, but we're in the middle of Missouri. We're in Rolla, Missouri, and we've got a cryptid here that they call Momo the Monster.
Missouri
And
Monster.
we talked to DA about that for a while, and at one time he had talked about coming up, and we were going to get a gun and go out in the woods.
That's
Hell
Ozark
yeah,
Howler.
we still need to do that. Now that I've recovered from my heart surgery, I'm all about it.
Oh yeah, that's Ozark Howler.
Yeah, because we live right. So I live about 5 minutes that way,
Yeah.
and right in between us is where the last sighting of the Ozark Howler was.
Yeah, broad daylight sighting of the Ozark Howler right between their two houses.
Yeah.
That was what, in 2019?
Yeah.
And Ryan actually had a dogman sighting when he was a kid.
Yeah, and I didn't even know it, honestly. I found it out when I was talking. I think we were talking to you and Jessica at the same time, Jessica Jones.
Yeah.
We were doing a show, and I'm like, well, this happened to me. And so we used to camp out right by the cemetery all the time, and in the middle of nowhere. But
That's a cool place, man. People are just dying to get in there.
yeah, but I've never heard that before.
Sorry. I'm here all week, unfortunately.
But no, so we were camping out and we had this little barrier set up. You know, we were kids, so we had the fishing string with the rocks and the cans and all the jingle jangle set up, and we put up
and a blanket fort.
Yeah. And we built a little platform tower in a tree, right? And we take turns keeping watch. And so one of our buddies was up there, and he started screaming, "Hey, there's something scratching that tree! There's something scratching that tree!" So we all ran over there. I think we had a 22 at the time and some BB guns or whatever. We thought we were cool. And so we get over there, and there's some scratches on the bottom of the tree. And we're sitting there looking around, and I heard something, and I turned around. My buddy turned around, and he shined a flashlight, and there was a tree about this big around there, and on each side of it, I seen like a set of eyes. I was like, "What the?" Because that's a wide face, you know. And I'm like, "Okay." And then if you look a little bit further down from it, it looked like human-sized raccoon hands wrapped around it, like this. And I was telling JT and Jessica that story. They're like, "That's a freaking dog, man." I'm like, "I have no idea. That's what happened. We shut up shooting towards it and like yelling and screaming around towards it because we were stupid kids back then, and nothing happened with it. It took off, whatever it was, but that's all. That's what it was.
Just like
that was right here in Missouri. Wasn't it?
Let's go upstairs.
Right. You know.
Yeah, that was right here in Missouri, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's literally like right down the road. So
next time I'm up, I want you to take me and show me where that happened.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, dude. There's like a little cave there too. You can't really get in it. Yeah. And it's the entrance to that cave. The entrance to that cave is about that wide and about that tall, just enough for you to get in and try to get in. And
yeah, I'm not getting in there.
Yeah,
we know.
You tell them about the age. You tell them about the hunting blind, or the
no. We down on Joe Bald. Robbie and I went down with Noah. Was it a year ago, November, Robbie?
Oh, it was 2 years ago.
2 years ago. So we went down there, and during the night, we kept seeing something with green eye shine following us. And of course, Robbie went out after it, and we had to rein him in and get him back. That was the night Noah earned the nickname the Robbie Wrangler, because Robbie will go running after this shit. But we decided we were going to come back in the daylight and try to find tracks. Well, the next day Robbie found a canine track that was about 7 inches across. And where he found it was in a hunting blind. And when he crouched down in that hunting blind, I walked up the little game trail just a little ways, and I knew where he was at. And in less than 10 yards, I couldn't see him anymore.
And to clarify, hunting blind, we don't mean man-made. It was like somebody taking a big bird's nest and turned it up on its side like that. It was all these sticks and limbs and little small wove together. And I mean, so I got down on my hands and knees inside of it. And I could have stood up and spread my arms like that and still not been touching the sides. And like he said, he walked about 10 yards away, turned around, couldn't see me, and knew where I was at.
We call those meth mounds around here.
Let me say something about this real quick. Folks, I want to give you guys a quick update. Miss Lene's still in the hospital. Probably will be the rest of the week. She had some sort of respiratory illness. They're still trying to figure out exactly what it was. She was intubated for a few days. Oh, no. She's doing better now. She's hoping she'll be able to go home by the weekend, maybe possibly as late as next Monday. But, just keep her in your prayers. Keep thinking about her. She is still very weak and is not responding to a lot of texts or phone calls. So we'll try to keep you all updated here. But if you guys want to send her a text, don't necessarily expect her to respond right away, because she is really exhausted and she does need her rest. So we will try to keep you all updated on her condition, and we'll keep praying and hoping that she's home soon. And she's already improved a lot over what she was this last week, but she's getting better and getting stronger, and hopefully she'll be home soon.
We're praying for you, Lene. I just got to say, some of your people in the chat have jokes too. Dorothy Wade was like, "How many dead people are in that cemetery?" All of them.
Yes.
Well, Miss Lene had a joke she wanted me to tell Robbie, so I will go ahead and do that. And she said to let everybody know she's got her sassy pants back on. She's just getting stronger. She said she wanted me to ask you, Robbie, have you ever smelled mothballs?
I'm damned if I do. I'm damned if I don't. So,
there is no way to answer that.
so I'm going to say yes.
She said, ask him how he got their little legs apart.
Yep, she's definitely feeling better.
I love it.
So that's a direct joke from Miss Lene. She wanted me to tell that on
One
Robbie.
came off at each finger, in between each thumb and finger.
Well, who knows? They may have been bigger than that. It might have been Mothman.
In which case, that's not Cheeto dust all over Robbie's face.
Oh man.
God.
The jokes are killing me.
And y'all were worried about derailing us and not fitting in, right?
Right. That's funny because like I was just popped in my head. I was watching this thing about the drill sergeants, and I'd never heard this one before, and it was hilarious. He was talking to the cadets or whatever, or the guys, and he's like, you're a damn disgrace. He's like, what's your birthstone? Crack rock? And I'm like, I've never heard that one before.
That's a great one.
I'm keeping that one.
That's funny.
You know why a drill sergeant wears a necktie, don't you? It's to keep the foreskin from plopping up and suffocating them. I'm sorry.
You're such a dickhead.
I'm sorry.
Oh
No,
boy.
usually I tell that about highway patrol, but I thought I'd be nice.
But no, to get back to the cryptid situation.
Speaking of which, shout out to all the highway patrol for keeping us safe this weekend. I took a trip to the big city of St. Louis today, and
I'm sorry.
it was a fairly good drive.
Was Ryan acting as tail gunner in the back of your car?
No. No.
I ain't going to St. Louis without a side gunner and a tail gunner, maybe a door gunner.
No, but I do have a funny story about that. So me and my buddy, I actually do have friends. We went to St. Louis. They were doing this thing in Tower Grove Park called the Punk Rock Flea Market. And basically they had a bunch of vendors and had a bunch of punk rock bands playing and stuff. And I thought, it'd be cool. I've wanted to see it for years and just never got to go. So if you don't know anything about St. Louis, Tower Grove Park is freaking massive. Okay. It takes up like 6 square blocks of real estate. It's like, I don't know. It's like fucking 2 or 3 square miles or whatever. And, so anyway, we get there and we're like, oh, cool. Look at we saw all the vendor booths and stuff. And we're like, wow, this is awesome. This is bigger than we thought it was going to be. We park and we go through and we're walking through all these vendor booths and we're looking around. And we're okay. Punk rock flea market. It's like people selling fucking fruit and vegetables and like handcrafted stuff and like coffee and different things. And there was a lot of food vendors. And I'm like, dude, this is fucking weird, and there was a band playing, but they weren't really playing punk rock. But I'm like, well, it is kind of early. And I'm like, what the hell? Well, we had a buddy of ours that had a booth up there and we really wanted to stop and see him. And so finally my buddy Clint goes over and he says, hey man, we're looking for booth 69, to the main guy running the place. We're looking for booth 69. We've got a buddy of ours there. He's selling books and some other stuff. And he was like, oh, he goes, what are you looking for? And he was like, oh, the punk rock flea market, booth 69. And he was like, oh, he goes, that is on the other side of the park. we're like, we've been here for an hour wandering around looking at this shit, wondering why all these old people are here. And we're like, what the fuck? So finally we walked 2 miles over to the other side of the park and we find it. Now we're at home. Now we're with our people, the fucking dudes wearing dresses and fucking women with half shirts on and fucking leather and spikes and, mohawks and shit. Yeah. Then we were right at home.
Sounds like a dream I had last night.
It was just like, oh God, how the fuck did we end up in the wrong place?
I believe it.
Well, you were in St. Louis to
Now,
start
the
with.
better question is, why did it take y'all 2 hours to figure out you're in the wrong place?
Well, it wasn't really 2 hours. We weren't there that long.
It was 4.
I mean, I'm just saying.
We were just kind of wandering around looking at some of the stuff, and
Yeah.
We figured they had.
Even
That guy on the accordion was really kicking ass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was some
Yo,
dude
even
playing
punk rockers
saxophones
like
and
some-
shit. and-
Yeah.
There was some damn monkey jumping around with a little hat on, and asking for
Stealing
money.
our
I
shit.
don't.
No, we didn't see
They
nothing
said
like
it was
that.
punk
Well,
rock, though. I mean, you know.
wait. Oh, never mind. I can't say that.
I'll actually be up there next Sunday for the pagan picnic.
Oh,
They have a huge pagan picnic up there.
well,
next
it's
weekend.
gonna probably be on the other side.
I will know where the hell I'm at.
Won't be able to miss it.
I'll know where I'm at. Trust me.
So the moral of the story is don't let JT navigate.
Definitely,
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
not point
Yeah,
man
no,
at all
no,
whatsoever.
I thought I knew what I was doing. That just
I
proves
tell
that
my
I'm
wife
getting
all the
old.
time whenever we're going somewhere, I tell her she's the onboard navigation system. Nags me until I get to the right spot.
Well, the funny thing is I'm like, we could have possibly been in the right spot. I'm old enough now to where all these old people I'm walking around are like, they're not too far from me. You know,
Right.
So I'm like, I could possibly be in the elderly punk rock, flea market here.
Hey,
Went for the
punk
punk-
rockers still like handmade soap, guys. I'm just telling you. You
Went for
could
the
have been in
punk
the right
rock
place.
fest, came home with an apple press, and now he makes his own cider.
Well, it's kind of was the, yeah, just about.
So, you don't go ahead, buddy.
I was just gonna say, so JT, you're the horror guy.
Yes.
So, what's your favorite horror series? I gotta know.
So series is kind of tough on me. My favorite movie of all time is Halloween 1978.
Fair play, like that.
Series as a series, I would probably have to say Friday the 13th.
My man.
Now, not every Friday the 13th movie
No.
is a great movie, but there are some gems in there.
What's your favorite
And-
Friday the 13th movie?
Part 3.
Very.
And I'll tell you exactly why. Part 3 is the first time we get to see Jason don that iconic mask.
Yep. He takes what was it? Not Sully. What was that kid's name?
Shelley.
Shelly.
Shelley.
Sorry.
Yep.
Yeah, takes his mask. Yes, and I can deal with that.
And then shoots the spear gun through the chick's eye.
Yep.
I absolutely love that scene. One of my favorite kill scenes, though, was from Jason X.
The nitro,
The nitro face.
yes, the girl's
Yes.
face.
Oh my
Great
God, that is so
Great
good.
kill. I actually like the one where he kind of slowly breaks the guy's neck too. When you just hear it kind of,
Oh yeah, yeah.
that's a good
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
But
You know what's funny is we were talking about earlier about not cussing so much on YouTube and stuff like that. Yeah, you can go on YouTube and find beheading videos and
Oh yeah.
things
yeah.
of that nature, and it's just like, but I can't say the F word.
It's crazy. Yeah.
My and I know this one's probably not everybody's favorite, but my favorite scene with Jason was when he was in Manhattan and he walks by and kicks those guys' radio.
Oh
To
yeah,
me, I
yeah,
just
yeah.
wanted to do that so many times. Just
So here's
walk
a
up and
funny
just
thing
touch
about
this
that.
radio.
Here is a completely funny thing about that. In an interview with Kane Hodder, he said that was completely unscripted. They were filming him walk down the street, and he fucking did that on his own. Them guys that he did that to were not supposed to be in the movie. It was a fucking complete fluke.
Worked out.
He just
perfect.
walked by and fucking kicked their radio.
See,
They were like,
See,
screw that.
Yeah,
see, Kane Hodder is my favorite Jason,
absolutely.
but none of the movies he's in are my favorite Friday the 13th movie.
I agree. I like Part 7, which unfortunately we lost Lar Park Lincoln earlier this year.
Yeah, and the MPA killed that movie. If that movie had correct me if I'm wrong, but it was going to get an X rating.
It was supposed to, yes.
If they hadn't have edited all that stuff out,
Right. Yeah, they had to edit out a lot of kill scenes.
because
Maybe they should release it at like an unedited cut.
Yeah. I'll tell you what's funny is
that's
when
basically
the,
Jason versus Carrie is what that boils down to.
Yeah, when the remake come out in 2009, I went to the theater and saw that movie, and I'll be honest with you, I absolutely hated it.
Except for about
but-
15 minutes.
Well,
of it.
yeah, there's a 15-minute sex scene in that movie that is phenomenal. But anyway,
Derek Mears did a good
years
job.
later,
as
I
Jason.
watched that movie and I love it.
Yeah, Derek Mears did a good job as Jason. I
He
don't
did.
like how they read this kind of like when Rob Zombie redid Halloween. They took the the mystique away from, you know,
Right.
Michael Myers being
Absolutely.
why he is, by giving him the white trash background. Same kind of
I
thing.
hated that.
Derek Mears did a great job as Jason. He was very menacing, very, but he runs underground. That's how he gets ahead of you. That that takes away all the mystique, and that's where you run into in my opinion.
And that's kind of how I was with it. And I kind of look at that movie as a standalone film. I am with you. Like, I think they gave him too much credit for, you know, it's like, come on, we don't need to see him. Jason didn't kidnap people. He fucking killed people, you know. He didn't keep people in cages underground, you know.
We don't know that.
Well, we don't. You're right. We don't. We don't. In my mind, I know that. But.
No, yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I'm a huge horror head too. Don't get it wrong, but I like one of my favorite horror movies is Phantasm, and I love that movie. Series.
Yeah.
I go down a rabbit hole in a lot of things. I'm a dimensions guy. Like, as far as my beliefs and things, I believe we are on different planes. You know, you can level up or
you're definitely on a different plane.
No, definitely. And it's a dirty one. No, but like I believe in the dimensions and things like that, and that series really, I love the storyline of it, and you know, it kind of you never know that. To me, the fact that something can come, it's kind of like you guys, if you guys know for sure, like they talk about Bigfoot being an interdimensional being, you know, can come in and out or whatever. Some people believe that. So like, I'm a firm believer in that. There are portals, there are things that, you know, can lead to different dimensions, and also stuff you can do with your own mind. That like DA was talking to me about a little bit in text messages, like about with ayahuasca and DMT and stuff like that, and lucid dreaming. It's the human mind is a crazy thing, and I think there's a lot of things that are possibilities that nowadays I feel like people in charge, whoever it is trying to make it seem like human beings aren't as special as we are. I think we're more special than they put it out to be. So like lucid dreaming, it's crazy. DA texted me this the other day. He's like, "Hey, can you guys come on? I want to kind of talk about something like this." And it's funny because like literally like 2-3 days ago, I had a really first time I've ever had a lucid dream, but I had a lucid dream, and it just happened to happen right before he got a hold of me about it. And it was crazy because in my dream, I've had this reoccurring dream for like a few years. I don't have it all the time, but it happens 2-3 times a year. But in this dream that I had, it was that reoccurring dream. I was like, in the dream, I was like, oh, I'm in this dream. I'm like, if I walk around this corner, I know that this whatever is going to be there. So I went a different direction. And in the entire dream, every time I was put in a position where something was going to happen, I changed what I did every other time. I went a different direction. I did a different thing. Then in my dream, I was like, I'm in a dream. I know exactly what's going on. So it's kind of crazy. It's like I was watching a movie of myself.
But you were in control of it.
But I was in control of it. It was really cool. And I mean, that's like the bottom level of lucid dreaming, of course.
Right.
You know.
Well, Ryan, there was no accident that I texted you about that. Because I know you and I have talked about Akashic records. We've talked about lucid dreaming. We've talked about elevated higher states of mental being. We even mentioned, DMT and ayahuasca. We talked about that on a number of occasions, but there was a reason why I reached out to you, because you're one of the people that I can actually talk openly about that kind of subject. Because most people you bring up lucid dreaming or the Akashic records, they just look at you with either a blank look on their face or they think you're stoned.
Right.
Kind of like the other four of us right here on this video.
Well, no, Steve is the only one Steve is the only one of the four of us that's gonna be hearing this for the first time. So for the last couple, you guys know I'm a writer, but for the last like 2, almost 3 weeks, I haven't been able to write hardly a word. I mean, I was just my mental focus wasn't there. I was struggling. I would sit down, and if I wrote a paragraph, it was a lot. I mean, there just wasn't coming out, and I felt like something was wrong, either with me or with the universe around me. You know, my life, something was wrong, and I couldn't place what it was. So a few nights ago, I texted Doc and said, "Hey, are you awake?" Because I called in many of these guys late at night, and especially when something's on my mind. But I've had similar conversations with Doc, so I thought of him right off the bat about lucid dreaming and that kind of thing. And so I start telling Doc, I said, I've keep having this reoccurring dream, and it's part of why I can't write. It just there's something going on. And when I started describing the dream, which it was of me sitting at a campfire, surrounded by pitch blackness, and the only sound I can hear is the wind whistling through the trees. And I'm sitting at that fire like I'm expecting somebody to join me, but nobody ever does. And I keep having this dream over and over. And when I described the dream to Doc, he'd been having the exact same dream. And Robbie was having a slightly different version of the same dream. I don't know if Steve has experienced anything like that here in the last few weeks, but I reached out to a buddy of mine who grew up on the Navajo reservation. His mother was a medicine woman. She just recently passed away, but I reached out to him because he's one of the guys if I've got a question about something like that, I generally reach out to Wes. And I explained to him, told him about the dream, said that Doc and Robbie and I were all having at least a version of the same dream, although Doc's and I was almost virtually the same. And what he said was, you may be able to experience this through lucid dreaming, but what I believe and what my father also believes is that someone on the other side is trying to contact you.
That would make a lot of sense.
Well, I totally believe that lucid dreaming is a thing. I have never experienced it myself, but
I've done it.
I think my whole dreaming world is different than normal people. I don't tend to dream, or I don't tend to remember dreams if I do. And when I do tend to have a dream, it's always very unsettling. It's like, got psychedelic colors or something like that. Just things are, it maybe you could consider it lucid dreaming, because I know instantly that it ain't right. I don't know if I, subconsciously know it's a dream, but I know it's not right. It's not supposed to be there. And I always attribute it to just, shift work insomnia, or, too much melatonin, or, whatever. But I don't, I prefer that I don't dream, typically.
Right.
But I definitely believe that there is a lot of messaging in dreams. I am, I'm a spiritual person. I'm kind of the agnostic of the group when it comes to the cryptids and the whatnot. I want to believe, I want the proof. I've seen enough that I'm right there, and I'm not going to actively look for it as much as some of these crazy bastards will. But I'm convinced. But
what was it you said, Steve?
Bobby.
That was it.
But no, my dad had a very telling dream. My dad's among many things, he's a retired dentist, but he's also a classically trained organist. And there is a 5-manual pipe organ in my parents' house, and that's like my dad's whole world. We joke that the organ's worth more than the house that it's sitting in. But he had this dream when he was about 12 or 14 years old, before he played the organ, that he was in some place like heaven, basically. And he was walking down this, hallway, kind of like an illuminated stone hallway, a very, very calming, very cool, kind of place. And this person said, "Well, it's time for your lesson." And he walked up a set of stairs, and there was this, what looked like an organ console, but it had no keys on it. It was just a flat slab of like marble. And when he put his hands down on the thing, it lit up where he put it, and he heard organ music. And this person that he didn't recognize comes up and starts speaking to him. and was giving him some suggestions on sounds and things like this, and my dad's soaking it all up, and he eventually quits playing, or whatever you want to call that, and the man comes back in and is like, well, it's time for you to go, and he was escorted out of wherever he was. Years later, he sees a picture of that individual in a book, and he was a deceased famous French organ composer. And my dad ended up ultimately studying the organ with one of his former students.
Wow.
And it was a guy named Louis Vierin, and my dad had never met the man. The Vierin happened to be blind. The teacher was blind. If he'd just seen a random photograph of this dude, typically, in a photograph, you don't necessarily know somebody's blind unless they're, doing the Ray Charles routine or Stevie Wonder or something.
Right.
So how do you explain that?
Yeah. So
you just don't.
Yeah, you really can't. It's like somebody came to him in a dream. Here is one thing that Ryan and I did a deep dive on dreams, and we came up with a lot of stuff. And in dreams, he hates it when I go down this road, but science truly doesn't know what dreams really are. There's some strange hocus pocus of the mind. But one thing that we do know is, and Ryan and I have talked about this in depth, is, and I'm probably going to get this name wrong, but there is a thing called pixelation, I think is what they call that. Basically, your mind does not have the ability to make up a face. So anybody
pareidolia.
What is that?
Pareidolia
or something. Yeah.
Is the mind,
your mind does not have the ability to
nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it cannot make a face. So if you see something in a dream, you have seen that face somewhere. Now, it could have been someone you knew, someone you work with, someone you went to school with. It could have been somebody you passed walking down the street and never even paid attention to them. Your mind is going to lock on that face, and they may show up in a dream at some point, and you'll have no idea who they are. But apparently your brain cannot make up a human face.
Yeah, it's
kind of strange. Like so your father must have seen a picture of this gentleman at some point.
Or your body produces DMT naturally. That's what causes that's where your dreams, a lot of your dreams come from. And DMT, so when you die, like when you're getting ready to die, your body dumps DMT. That's why you get that euphoric feeling.
Well, and Ryan, you may know more about this than I do. When I was in college, I went through my psychology class. Great professor. I don't remember the guy's name, but he was amazing. And the girl I was dating at the time, she'd actually went through his class before I did. So she said, "Be ready, because he's going to sit in the class and he's going to act like he's a student, and he's going to start talking to somebody, and he's going to start saying stuff like, hey, have you heard anything about this teacher? I heard he's an asshole," and all this kind of stuff, which he did. But when we got into the thing about dreaming, he was like, okay, if anybody can tell me in a lucid dream, if you put your hand up in front of your face, what you see, I'll give you an A. Well, of course, a lot of people were like reading way too much into it, and they were trying to, and at the end of the class or end of the semester or whatever, he hadn't said anything else about it. Nobody had come up with the answer or whatever. So somebody finally asked him, said, "Well, what's the answer, teach?" What do you say? He said, "Your hand." But it was, people just reading too much into it.
Right.
But it in a lucid dream, that's the whole point of a lucid dream, is it's not like this fantastical thing where you can fly or, all this weird stuff happens. It's just, it is like you said earlier, it's a dream, what's going on, but you can kind of control things a little bit more. Is that pretty much?
So like there's different, like when I was talking about that earlier, like I said, that's like low level lucid dreaming, is knowing you're in the dream. And then as you get more into dreaming and you can have lucid dreams. There's a way to get to it. You can start doing more. you can start going outside. So if you have a dream, say you're having a reoccurring dream, and it's in this, you're always in this house, right? So the further you get into understanding lucid dreaming and being able to cause lucid dreams, I've only had one lucid dream, and it literally just happened like 3 or 4 days ago. And I've been studying this stuff for a long time. But like, so you're in a dream, and every time you're in this house, once you get good at being able to cause lucid dreams, you're going to be able to open up the front door. And then the next time, you're probably going to be able to walk outside on the porch. And it's basically, like I was saying with DMT, it's like a key gateway to the other side.
So it gets deeper and deeper, is what you're saying.
Yeah, you get further and further down. Like you start getting into the other dimensions. See, I'm a firm believer that when you sleep, you're not necessarily sleeping. You're just, your conscience or your energy, whatever, is in a different plane of existence. And I know, like, sometimes you don't have dreams, or sometimes you just don't remember them.
Well, like what we were talking about earlier, like Doc and DA, they both, had more of the same dream, like the campfire and all, and the sounds, all that stuff. The difference between their version and mine was the three of us were there, but it's like with my version, there was no campfire, still the clearing, still in the forest, but it was like we were getting ready to either go into the woods or we just come out of the woods. Just like I told Doc, I said, I'm not sure if we'd gone in or was coming out, or we're getting ready to go in or coming out, or whatever it was, but it was the three of us in a clearing in the woods. And the difference was theirs is, there was the campfire and the sounds and all that. But with mine, it was almost like I was having another dream, and then I was pulled into that. It's like, I don't remember.
So,
well, yeah, I don't remember where I was or what was going on or whatever. But all of a sudden, I went from like this part of the dream on the beach or whatever to all of a sudden I was right there with Doc and DA in the middle of the woods in a clearing.
So here's a crazy thought: what if Doc and DA were searching, but you're the only one that found everybody?
And it gets further into how I was talking about, like, I'm a firm believer that human beings are way more special than whoever likes to give us credit for.
Oh yeah.
And that
Absolutely.
our brains, so like a definition or an example of this is back in the day before there was, internet and all this electronic stuff disturbing everything. I'm a firm believer that people used to be able, like, medicine men or seers back in the day, Native Americans, they communicated telepathically. That's why you have,
and there's proof of that. That's
why you have different nations of Native Americans and even different continents. They have the same, stories and same examples of things, but they're thousands of miles apart, and they would have never seen each other in the real world. I'm a firm believer that
and they've had the same dreams,
right.
And they've drawn pictures of creatures that are fairly similar. If you look at is it the Wendigo?
Yeah, Wendigo is like the Native American
that
shapeshifter.
Doc's shaking his head over there.
Doc don't like the Wendigos.
No. Well, no. What we're getting at is how a tribe on the East Coast would roughly have a drawing the same as a tribe on the West Coast, and they haven't even seen each other. They've never been close to each other.
Well, I mean, you can make that worldwide. We've talked about that before plenty of times.
Right.
Exactly.
I mean,
absolutely.
Every major continent and every major civilization on every major continent has had. I mean, going back to the Pure map, there's drawings of Bigfoot and Dogman like creatures and all kinds of other cryptids that we've pointed out. There's something, if you listen to the Legends of the Mapinguari, that's kind of a Bigfoot type creature that's got a mouth in its stomach. If you look at that, and DA's one that actually found that one, he was like, holy crap, look at that. That thing looks like it's got a mouth in its stomach. We're like, wait a minute. Right. That goes back to the Mapinguari legend. So,
yeah, you don't even have to do anything with cryptids. I mean, look at the Great Pyramid of Giza and look at several of the pyramids in South America. They have the exact same dimensional footprint. Same exact.
Chichen Itza.
Yeah,
is
yeah.
what he's talking
Okay,
about.
I've been to Chichen Itza, so that was the
Yeah.
same one. So yeah, and I've been to the pyramids in Egypt, in Cairo, and so
Right.
They have the same orientation,
Mhm.
alignment with the celestial bodies. They
Right.
have the same footprints, and then I know there aren't there others in like Asia.
Oh yeah, they're all over the world.
There's pyramids all over the world.
Yeah, so I mean,
in fact, this is kind of odd. They just found one in Antarctica.
See, so I mean,
buried under the ice
with the same dimensional footprint. So
yeah,
Same
and they're
ratio.
all aligned
everything's connected, man.
to a specific. They're all aligned to a specific geometric pattern.
And what I was getting at with that is that human beings themselves, like, you know, that's why they can never really clone human beings, because our brains are too complicated. They're too complicated.
Mhm.
It's like a computer in there, you know.
We don't even know how to use our brains.
So
Not 100%.
right. Well, some of us will.
Some people don't at all.
I'm about 3%. Most people run around 10. Okay, maybe
But
I'm about
so-
2%.
So it's
I
like
like about me.
It's
yeah,
like milk.
2% milk.
2% milk.
Your skim milk.
I'm skim. Thanks.
Oh,
There ain't nothing skim about me.
But no. So what I'm saying is the way humans communicated back then, you kind of get it now. If you walk into a space, an area, or, you know, somewhere, a perfect example is this: is when me and him went to the Haunted America conference in Alton. You walk into a room full of people, you feel the energy.
Yeah.
You know, I got a martial arts background. I used to do MMA and stuff like that. Like, I'm just big on, you know, situational awareness, everything like that, knowing what's around you at all times, all that kind of stuff. But anyways, you walk in, you can read people. Stay away from that guy, you know, this, that. But also, you can feel that energy. So you can change the atmosphere of a room with enough people. You can also
absolutely
make things happen with enough people.
There's a specific term for that. I mean, but in layman's term, it's groupthink.
Right. But I mean,
Hive
like,
mind.
you can make stuff
what?
manifest.
Hive mind.
Hive
Right.
mind, yeah.
But you can actually make things manifest. And people are like, well, if they're just doing that, that just means that you're mentally doing it and it's not real. It is real at that moment, and it is real. It may not be there like before you guys get it. It's like seances or anything you're doing.
Mhm.
If you go looking for something enough and you really believe in that, and
You're
you're
going to find it.
you're pushing that energy out there,
Mm.
you'll find it. And I think that with like the Native Americans, the way they communicated back then is blocked now with all the different, you know, all the electronics and satellites and everything that's going on right now. There's so much like just feeding us negativity that sometimes it's hard to get out of that negativity, and you have to find, and you can feel it. Like, I work for a company where I deliver stuff, you know, and whatnot. I've delivered to places, and you all have probably been to places where there's no electricity. There's nothing. And you're miles and miles and miles away from a power line, and you can feel the difference. You can hear the difference. Like, it's just, all you hear is the trees. That's it. And you can feel how much of, for me, it's a weight lifted off of me. That's one thing I love about hunting. You know, even if I don't shoot nothing, just going out in the woods and sitting away from everything, you know, you feel that. It cleanses your soul, to me anyway. That's the way I feel. But
that's what's wrong.
Feeling after a thunderstorm.
Right.
That, you know, I can't explain it, but it's like that sensation, like everything is just clean and at ease.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I mean,
Exactly what you're talking about, Steve.
Yeah.
I really feel like if people would just, like, when I hear people say, "Oh, there's nothing out there," whatever they are, they don't believe anything. You live, you die, that's it. You get buried, and you turn into dirt. Like, the world is so much. There's so much more in the world, and then the human body itself, just human beings alone, space, all that, whatever. But even the human body, we still haven't really understood. And I think that people are ignorant to go around thinking there's nothing else out there, and it's pretty boring life if you're going to go around through the world thinking that you just live, you die, turn to dirt, and that's it. Yeah, there's so much cooler stuff out there.
That theory is.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Steve.
Oh, I was going to say that theory is big in cosmology now. I forgot which scientist it was. One of the big astronomers, Michio Kaku or one of those guys, and he said that if you could take an eyedropper full of water and put it under a microscope and say, I don't see any aliens in here, therefore there isn't any.
That analogy about sharks in the ocean.
Maybe it is sharks that they were using, but I probably just paraphrasing it horribly. That 3 or 4 milliliters of water doesn't give you anything statistically significant about what's in the rest of the damn ocean.
Right.
Or shining a light, for a moment in what spot in the woods. Oh, yeah, there's no trees here because light didn't hit any.
Right. Yeah, it's
somebody in the chat made a couple of people in the chat made a comment earlier that I want to kind of swing to. You had said, Ryan, that maybe the reason that Robbie's dream was different than the other two gents up there was the fact that they've already found. They were calling for or waiting for another somebody. He found them. Robbie's the tracker of our group. He's the one who finds all the shit.
That's where I was going, Steve. So.
Oh, what about? Okay, I'm sorry. Did we just steal your thunder? Go ahead.
Get out of my head.
And that makes perfect sense.
That's why I'm so traumatized.
I gotta pee. I'll be back.
Keep him in. Ryan's going pee. Yeah. So that means I got to keep you entertained. Let me grab my guitar. I'm gonna start singing.
But that's what I was gonna say. I didn't know if DA or Doc caught that, but when you said that, JT, Cajun is the one that put that up, Steve. He said, "Well, Robbie is the tracker of the group," because you said, "Well, maybe Robbie found."
Right.
I lost that in the comments, and I went back. I was reading through the comments. I was like, "Holy crap!"
That's kind of profound.
That makes perfect sense. Freaking sense, dude.
Because, like I said, it was like I was doing something else, and the next thing I know, I was standing in that clearing with you two. But y'all were up there with the fires and everything. There was no fire with me. It was just like all of a sudden having a dream on the beach, sipping a margarita or whatever. And all of a sudden, I'm in the woods with y'all, getting ready to either go in the woods or we just came out or what. More than likely, it's probably getting ready to go into the woods, knowing us.
Right.
Well, this is the part I didn't finish. I didn't tell you the rest of this. Wes and his dad both agreed that it was someone from the other side who wanted to speak with us. And Doc is the one that pointed out there's only one person that we all three have in common that's passed away in the last couple of years.
Yep.
Tomb.
I'm missing who?
Tomb.
Oh my God. Yes.
We lost him just over a year ago.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Oh.
Right. And whenever
he was a very spiritual guy.
DA and I were on the phone the other day talking about this, and all of a sudden he said, who we have in common? And it's
no,
like,
that was all three of us.
Oh yeah, we were all three on the phone. That's right. And I was like, holy crap. It just blew like a light bulb.
Because
that's very cool.
We all three pretty much went, holy shit, at the same time.
And after we came to that conclusion, I slept better that night. I didn't have the campfire dream.
Same.
And I got up, came in on the computer, and wrote 7,000 words in a sitting.
Wow.
I
don't think I've written 7,000 words in my life.
Yeah.
And
probably.
but then
7,000 words.
We're pushing 36 books plus everything else I've written over the years. I'm probably in the ballpark of 1 million.
But think about it from my standpoint too. I was kind of perplexed as to where, I knew what I wanted to do with this third book, but I still was kind of like, I don't know where to go. And after we had that conversation, I was like, man, I know exactly where to go with this.
That's cool.
He guided you through. I actually interpreted the three of our dreams into the chapter that I'm writing right now.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Cool.
That's awesome.
Pretty cool. Yeah.
Let me tell you guys a quick little story, and Ryan's heard this story a million times, but my brother-in-law, he was one of those guys that I just really looked up to him. He was retired military. I never really had a father figure in my life until my sister and him got married, and he was like a father figure to me. He passed away at a very early age. He was only 44 years old when he died. And my wife and I had just gotten married and moved away from the city. And shortly after we moved away is when he passed away. And so we were going back and forth and helping my sister out. And I had to come home one weekend because I had to work the following week. My wife was off work and she was going to stay in the city and help my sister out with the kids and stuff. And in my house, when you walk out my bedroom door, if you immediately look to the left, it's a staircase that goes up to the upstairs. One night, laying in bed, I had a dream that I walked out that bedroom door and looked up the staircase, and there's my brother-in-law standing about 3/4 of the way up the staircase, and he's waving at me, trying to get me to come up the steps. And as soon as I saw him, I woke up, and I was like, what the hell was that, you know? And so I just laid there for a few minutes, and then I went back to sleep. Well, I ended up having the dream again, the exact same thing. And, you know, I woke up again and was like, okay, this is freaking bizarre, you know. Then I started panicking, you know, and, you know, I'm into weird stuff, but here I am. I've just moved into the country, and, you know, I'm a city boy, and now I live in the country, and I'm in this house, and now I've just seen my dead brother-in-law on my staircase, you know, and I'm like, what the hell? And so I jump out of bed and I grab my bedroom door, and I tell you what, it was like I had feet made of concrete. I could not open that door to save my soul. I tried and tried and tried, and to this day, I still don't know what he wanted. It's very bizarre. That happened. That was probably about a month and a half after he passed away.
So it's
weird how your brain, you know, incorporates that. What did he really come to me? Because I've had a lot of instances. I lost my mom. My mom was 45 when she passed away. I was only 19. And so I've lived more of my life without my mom than I ever did with. But there have been several times that she has come to me in dreams just to talk to me about, you know, and usually it's when I've done something really stupid, you know, and she's trying to,
which is a lot
because I'm pretty moronic sometimes. But it's weird for me. You know, you guys talk about your lucid dreams and stuff. I don't know that I really have lucid dreams, but I do see a lot of past loved ones in my dreams. You know, my mom, my grandma,
and that's
my
what I was getting at. Well, like with the DMT, you know, your body naturally produces it, and then like when you die, you get a dump of it, you know, and that's what gives you that euphoric stuff. And it's like the doorway to the next level or whatever happens. And you can use DMT now. And the cool thing about it is that people, no matter where you're at in the world, anyone who's ever used it, they all see the same beings. So they all see the same thing. Now you may have different stories, but the beings that are in or whatever they are, they see the same ones. So there's something there, you know.
There's something connected.
There's something connected to everybody's connected.
Yeah.
What exactly is ayahuasca?
All right. Well, so ayahuasca is the natural. I want to say it's the natural way of getting DMT. So your body has MAOIs. And they're in your stomach. So a lot of the stuff you eat has DMT in it. But the reason why you don't get on a trip on it is because your stomach produces MAOI inhibitors.
Unless they're mushrooms.
which block that. They block the unnatural. So ayahuasca, they use two different plants. One is the plant that has the DMT, and the other one has the MAOI blockers. So it allows you. But the natural way of doing ayahuasca lasts a lot longer, and it's more, for lack of better terms, violent. You puke a lot on it. Like there's a good chance you're going to puke a lot on it. There's like, you go through a whole ceremony, but it's a lot. You know, some people say they want to do it that way because it's more natural and just the whole process, and people have to do it that way, which is fine. But you also can use DMT that they, I think they smoke DMT is what it is. I think there's another way to do it too, but I can't remember off the top of my head right now.
So is that what they do in the huts?
Yeah.
Like, is that what you're talking about?
Well, it doesn't have to be necessary to be a hut.
What is that? They call
peyote?
that? No. The Native Americans, they go into
Sweats.
these like huts and they fill them up with smoke.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You spirit world.
That's a nice face there, Robbie.
The spirit world, But what I'm saying is that when you're in your dream, you're a little bit closer to that other side. So, they're able to contact you quicker that way. Also, if you've had like a past a near-death experience, your body, your brain has been opened up to the other side, which is really strange, because for me, like I was telling you guys earlier, I'm a dimensional guy. I kind of believe in just there's something out there, don't know what it is, but this is just one plane of existence. You're going to move on to your next. And we can hear in a little bit or whatever, we can get into the Akashic records and stuff like that if you want to. But I believe that, when you leave this, you go to a different plane once you leave this one. Now, I've had a couple friends that have, died for a long time. They died for like 8 minutes. One of them said when he died, all he saw was black. That's it for the time that he was gone. He was aware of it, and all he saw was black. And then I had a friend that he died for a few minutes. They brought him back, and he was actually in a coma for like a month. And when he came back out of that, he preached a lot about God and going to heaven and seeing the gates and talking and all. He wasn't like that before that. So I think that maybe you make your own, you're building your own thoughts in your, so if
they say you make your own hell.
Right. Well, what I was going to say is my buddy who said all he saw was black. I love the guy as far as a friend to me. He was great, but he wasn't that great of a person. So maybe he has had a lot of darkness. I believe in dark and light, good and evil, that kind of thing. Maybe he just had a lot of darkness, and he and my other buddy, he was a pretty good dude. Wasn't really super religious, but he lived a good life, and maybe that's what he saw. So I think there's pathways that we can go through in our own minds, doing our own things, and DMT is a way to get through that. Now, I don't freaking I've just for clarity, I've never done DMT or any of that. Actually, I never smoke. I don't smoke. I don't drink. I'm pretty boring. But
don't drink, don't smoke. What do
so
you do?
But I would do DMT in the right circumstances, because I'm a firm believer that that's a spiritual awakening of whatever it may be.
Right. I want to know what Valley Boy's talking about with the shooting a laser on the wall and people seeing code.
Let me bring that back up.
I just heard about that.
Yeah, study is started with people shining lasers onto walls. Where the laser meets the wall, they all see code.
Yeah, I seen when they're on GMT. Yeah, I just heard about that actually on I think it might have been Joe Rogan's podcast. They were talking about it, but
that's a dirty name. We can't talk about that guy. We don't have enough money to talk about that guy.
It'd be all right.
But anything bad, so we don't get a cease and desist.
Yeah, no, he'd be all right. No, so and then getting into the Akashic records and stuff like that, that stuff's really cool and interesting. It's basically about past lives and future lives and all that.
I'm on run for a minute. Don't you guys talk about me.
So
he's gone. Now we can talk about him.
I'll talk about him when he's here. I prefer to do that to his face. No, so DA's had this conversation with me, and JT has, of course. But like with the Akashic records, it's kind of crazy. So my story with it is me and my wife and I, we've been together for almost 25 years. And I mean, I'm only 39. So I've been with her for longer than I've not been with her, in my life. And we've always had that connection. It's just like instant. As soon as we met, we're best friends. And then you meet people in your life and you're like, man, I feel like I've known you forever. yeah, I mean, I'm sure you guys everybody's probably done that, you know. Man, I feel like we're best friends. I've known you forever. Those are your people that you've known in past lives. You wind up finding your tribe, whatever you want to call it. You find your people, and so it gets really crazy and deep with how it all can happen. But that's the way I feel with my wife. You know, it just happened that way, and that's where we're at. But my son, my youngest son, he is like, I can tell that he's lived many lives. He is way too smart, and just the conversations you have with him as a young child. His teachers, high school teachers, kids that talk to him, they're like, man, he's like talking to a full grown adult, and he's been that way since he was like 4, you know, and he says a lot of things. So when he was younger, he hasn't really talked about it much anymore, but when he was like 4 and 5, he would tell me, he'd be like, Dad, you're my favorite dad. And I'm like, buddy, I'm your only dad. What are you talking about? He's like, no, you're not my only dad, but you're my favorite dad.
What's your wife been doing?
Right. And then he would also be like, I miss my sister. I only have 2 boys. He has an older brother and then him, you know. But he was like, hey, can you be quiet?
No.
But so
here.
Oh, don't be that guy. But no, he would be like, he's like, I miss my sister, and my oldest would be like, you don't have a sister. We don't have a sister. And he'd be like, you don't have a sister, but I had a sister, and stuff like that. And it's just really, you know, it showed me that he had many lives before it, and it's pretty cool. And I don't know if any of you guys have seen or felt anything like that or know anyone like that, but I'm pretty certain that there's a lot of people like that in the world. You know, old souls, they call it. Yeah, you know, I'm the same way. I feel like what I've always felt, I was born in the wrong era. I feel like I belong into a different time, you know. So I don't know. I don't know if you guys feel that way or what your outlook on that kind of stuff is. I think it's all connected. Reincarnation, you know, past lives, just life in general now. Everything is connected somehow. And I think that it's been affected by, I mean, as much as we love it, you know, we're able to talk to you guys because of all this stuff, and we're able to meet people that we would never met and stuff like that. But it affects the way that we communicate now. You know, like you get to know somebody long enough and be around them long enough. Like I'm sure you guys being out in the field,
You learn to hate them.
right? Love-hate relationship.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
no,
We love to hate each other.
You guys don't have to talk. You can get someone to look, or you can be like, all right, oh, we're going here.
And
We're
then it's
doing
like,
that.
oh, he wants me to shut up. Okay. Yeah.
He gets it a lot.
Yeah, I do. I get that look a lot.
Have you guys
After-
ever read Through a Mirror Darkly, written by George Patton?
I know that I have not read it, but I definitely know what you're talking
Patton
about.
was a huge believer that he'd lived before. And that poem, the first time I read it, I just got chills because it was just, the imagery was so visceral, and I kind of understood it on a very deep level.
Yeah, it's cool because that's one thing I'm glad that, like, when me and JT started off this process and starting a podcast and talking to other people, you get to realize that you're not the only one out there that looks at stuff like this and thinks the way you do, or experience the things you
Oh
experience.
my God, I'm not crazy.
Right. You know,
Or maybe we're just all crazy together.
Well,
and
you're right.
I'm going to be honest with you. You know, the coolest and nicest people that I've ever met have been in the horror, paranormal, crazy,
Heavy metal.
weird world. You know what I mean? People, you would think that. So that's what I was talking about earlier. Sorry, I got sidetracked in my mental. But when I said we went to the Haunted America conference, I'm a really empathic person. I feel a lot of people's emotions and stuff, and even with movies and songs and things. I remember when I was younger, I've talked about this before with DA, possibly, I think, but I remember when I was younger, I would watch TV and I was watching Dean Cain, Kung Fu: The Legend Continues, right? So the intro that he's walking across this desert and he's like,
David Carradine.
Yeah. And
you said Dean Cain. I was like,
yeah. Right. You know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm saying though. But anyways, I would watch that and he would be like and he was like all drained of energy. And I remember sitting there and all of a sudden my body, I would just get drained. Like I was in the mood, like to show myself. And that's where I first figured out that like I'm pretty empathic with stuff. So I walk into this conference and I'm just like, man, I feel good here. You know, and there's all kinds of stuff here that people would walk in and be like, oh my gosh, it's the devil, or oh my gosh, it's this or that. And I didn't get that feeling at all. Everyone,
it was cool. Both of us felt like we were at home.
Right. You know, I mean, I think that I won't get too much into that because I don't want to offend anybody, you know, but like I feel like some of the worst people I've met have been in organized groups of people who believe in certain things. We'll put that way, you know. And I've been to a lot of different religious churches and things in my life, and you know, I've found out that the people I've met through this world and the people like you guys, talking to you guys, I get way better vibes off of. I connect better with them. They're not just judging me or trying to force feed me something. You guys are open-minded, you thinkers. You want to hear the stories.
Yeah, you should hear how they talk about you when you go pee.
I've also been amazed at how maybe dimensions is the right term for it. How it seems like unseen hands are moving chess pieces sometimes. I got to think about, somebody told me about, you know, how our brains couldn't understand anything more than 4 dimensions. You know, imagine if you were a 2-dimensional being, you would have no awareness of what's happening in a 3rd dimension. You know, your entire life exists on a piece of paper, but you don't know above and below it. You know, or like fish living in a lake, and suddenly something grabs them out of the lake. They had no awareness it was there. It was like all of a sudden, what the hell just happened? I have had
fish telling alien abduction stories.
Exactly right, exactly. And I was thinking about times in my life where it just seems like very random things went into place that I can't justify. Like meeting DA, honestly. You know, he and I ended up becoming friends through work. He was the sergeant on the security force that protects us at the hospital I work at. And we became friends. We became closer friends when I took care of his sister when she was ill. And, you know, it's just one of these guys, you know, I'm going to go have a beer with this bastard. You know, it's kind of, we clicked. And I had been reading a bunch of, at that time, Zombie fiction. And I read it on Kindle because, you know, I don't have places to store any more books because I've run out of shelf space. And, you know, Amazon will give you a little, because you read this, you might like this. Here's a snippet. And it played me a snippet of one of his Ragnarok Rising books, or presented me a snippet. I was kind of reading it. And I was like, I need to download some of his books. You know, I'm going to head him to the virtual pile that's on my end table, you know. And somehow we got to talking about zombies because, you know, it's like 3 in the fucking morning and we had, you know.
Well, I mean, what else are you going to talk about?
Yeah, you know, sometimes the coffee is strong.
Yeah.
But he goes, well, yeah, you know, I'm a writer, right? And I said, no. I said, what do you write? He goes, well, I've got a zombie series. I'm like, you're kidding me. I said, I got to check that out. Where is it on Amazon or whatever? He goes, yeah. And I'm like, is it under Doug or, you know, Doug Roberts? How are we, you know, well, I write under DA Roberts. I looked at him like, oh my God, you're DA Roberts. You know, and I had this fangirl moment and everybody teases me about it. And it's one of his favorite fangirl moments. But I was like, what were the odds that, yeah, at that point, I didn't even know that D.A. Roberts was local to the Ozarks.
Right.
I just knew that the book was set in the Ozarks, and it sounded pretty interesting because I was like, zombies in Springfield, what the fuck? That's going to be cool. I live across town from D.A. And then, you know, years earlier, when I was reading a little different kind of fiction, I felt like I was his writer, and he's been on the show before, Jonathan Mayberry. And I happen to be, when I go out of town, I like to go to brick and mortar bookstores because I'm that dude. And I was in this Barnes and Noble in Willow Grove, Pennsylvania, and sitting in the conference room was Jonathan Mayberry. And he was doing a class with some new writers about, I think it was basically laying out a fight scene. I'm like, what are the odds that the writer that I am currently following is going to be in the damn bookstore that I randomly felt I needed to walk into? Now, granted, he lived in the Philadelphia area, but what are the chances in Philly that he was in that freaking bookstore? And I got to meet him. We ended up becoming friends. And then years later, he's on the show. And I was like, what are the odds of this?
Yeah.
I couldn't have lined that up if I
happens
tried.
all the time.
It's kind of like whenever you're sitting there and you're like thinking of somebody and then they call you.
Well,
Or you're picking your phone up to call someone and they're calling you as soon as you pick your phone up.
The thing with DA and I, and this is how he and I became friends. I had an encounter when I was, like 7, 8 or 9 years old, and I suppressed it for 40 plus years because back then people called you crazy. You didn't see a Bigfoot. You imagined it. You're stupid. You're crazy. You're whatever. And so I just suppressed it. Never said anything about it. I still secretly harbored the excitement. I watched every little documentary I could find. I read, back then that's all you could do was read. You couldn't get on the internet. Watched In Search of Leonard Nimoy and watched The $6 Million Man, watched Steve Austin fight Andre the Giant dressed up as Bigfoot.
Yep. My favorite one was the robot.
Yep. Well, it's both. Well, I think the guy that played Lurch, I think, was the robot, and Andre was the one when it was supposed to be real.
No, I'm talking about that big, like octagon shaped robot thing that he had to fight. The little thing that drove around. That was actually scary. Yeah.
But anyway, so I still secretly loved anything to do with Bigfoot and cryptids and things like that. Big time. Werewolves have always been my favorite horror genre, other than Friday the 13th. But it was kind of like, you don't talk about that stuff. Well, I read Wild Hunt, the first Wild Hunt book the DA wrote. That was the first one of his books that I wrote, or that I read, excuse me. And there was one scene in that book, one scene that he writes that brought because like I said, I'd expressed this for like 30, 40 years. One scene I read is like, he was talking about them tree peaking and it was kind of swaying back and forth. And I read that and I was like, that's exactly what that thing did when I was looking at it outside that door. And it brought all that stuff back to me. Well, I get to the end of the book and I see his email and I'm like, well, he ain't going to ask me because I'm thinking, DA's like Stephen King this time because he's like, he's got to be like a multi-millionaire because these books are amazing and
Right.
He is the Stephen King of the Ozarks.
Well, true, but
but if Stephen King woke up tomorrow with my sales, we'd find him hanging from his shower curtain.
Yeah.
And he would just be a cokehead.
But
I thought he already was.
But that was my thinking. I was like, I'm gonna send him an email, but he's never gonna respond to this. He's not gonna. I mean, this. I'm thinking I'm writing an email to somebody like Stephen King.
Mm-hmm.
So I sent him the email, told him, hey, where can I get more of your books? I had an encounter when I was a kid. It was exactly like this, and I described the scene and all that stuff. And like the next day, I get an email response. And I'm like, oh my God, he responded to me. And he loves this story. I tell the story. I said, one email turned into 2 turned into 10 turned into 20. Then, I'm giving him my encounter. And he's like, okay, well, I'm going to, I might do this on the show. And I'm like, show, it's kind of like what y'all talk about. I'm like, show, what are you talking about? He said, well, we do a podcast. So I started watching his podcast and he's like, yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm like, well, I probably won't be able to watch it because I was coaching soccer at the time. I text him and say, hey, practice got canceled tonight. It was raining, whatever, can't do practice. So I won't be able to watch it. He's like, well, why don't you just come on the show and tell it? And I'm like, huh? Yeah. Well, come on and say, well, huh?
So it's amazing how many of us old farts didn't know what a podcast was.
Yeah.
So
when D.I. said he was going to start doing one, and he's like, "Yeah, why don't you come on here with me? And we'll do this." I'm like, "That was a podcast." I had to look it up.
So I had to get my 20-year-old daughter, who was still living with me at the time. I had to get her to come in here. I'm like, "Taylor, get in here. I don't know what he wants me to come on and tell a story. I don't know what I'm doing. What?" So my daughter and 5 minutes before the show, Taylor's still back and forth trying to get everything. And I'm like, I'm talking. Dia's like, I can't hear you.
But hey, you told the whole story though.
Yeah. Finally get everything going. I tell the story. And long story short, or shorter, it worked out. And here I am, 3 years later, DA?
Yeah, almost
3 years later. I've been a co-host on the show, met Steve, met Doc, met DA. And I am closer with these three guys than I am with people that I've known my entire life.
Yeah.
And people cannot believe that the three of us have only known each other such a short period of time, because we just
well,
it's weird how that happens.
The first time I was on the show with you, Robbie, I had that same kind of experience. I'm like, oh, okay, he's a redneck. I got a lot of redneck friends. That's awesome. Maybe he's just my people. And as the show went on, I was like, this is my people. He's one of my best friends now. And it's funny you say that we just met each other that night that we were at the Bent Penny for the first time. I guess it'd be the second time. It was when you and Doc were both in there together. And our favorite waitress comes over. She goes, "How long you know these guys?" And I said, "Well, I've met him tonight. I met him a couple months ago, but you weren't here, and I met him tonight in person." She kind of looks at me and she goes, "How long have you been friends?" I'm like, "Well, virtually for a couple of years, but we literally just physically met tonight."
Right.
Yeah.
And she just kind of looked at us and like, all right, because bartenders are attentive. That's how they always get your drinks to you when you need them. And she just kind of looked at us like,
yep.
Yeah. It's kind of funny. So here's our DA story. We had started our show. We were probably, I don't know, maybe a year into it. And all of a sudden we get this email from DA, saying, "Hey, I've watched your show. Would you guys be willing to have me on to promote my book?" And I'm like, who the fuck is this guy?
Who the fuck is this guy?
No, I'm just kidding. We were pretty excited to even find out that there was an author in the state of Missouri.
Or that somebody watched our show.
So, and he sent over. Yeah, we were just excited that the one person that watches our show actually contacted us.
You're that one guy.
You're the guy.
He sent us over. Some. I think it was some screenshots of the covers of some of his books, and sent us some information about him and a little bio. And Ryan are like, "Oh my God, we got to get this guy on the show," And so we ended up getting him on the show, and it was like we were best friends,
Yeah,
it just worked out, and that's like Ryan and I. Ryan and I have only known each other for probably close to 10 years now, but. It's like we've known each other our whole lives.
And that's what I was getting at with the whole Akashic Records thing, and finding your people throughout, your lives, whatever you want to believe. But with that, it's you find your tribe of people that, and I believe it, because just like the stories you guys have told tonight, our story, my personal life stories, it makes sense to me. I think that people, when they talk about, what they like clones and stuff like that, talk about, how they say freaking Nicolas Cage is a vampire because there's a picture.
Oh yeah.
Just like him.
There is some interesting.
That does look a lot like him, though.
It does.
Oh, there's a few of
there's a few of them. There's one looks just like Johnny Depp from back. Civil War time frame.
There's
another one
Keanu
Matthew
Reeves,
McConaughey has a doppelganger.
Oh,
I think I've met my doppelganger. I met him
in the bathroom in the mirror.
It was a little me. But no, I actually when I was a little kid growing up in South St. Louis. Family moved in just down the street from us, and their son looked identical to me. His name was Chad Sutton, and him and I became really good friends, and we looked so close to each other that we could fool our teachers. They had no idea who, we could go to different classes and stuff. We did it all the time. I'd go to his class, he'd go to mine.
Just in the 70s?
Just to mess with people. Yeah, actually.
It's because your teachers are high.
Well, probably. but yeah.
I know I definitely have that perception that there's recycled souls. My I guess you would call it reincarnation. My wife firmly believes in it. Like she has like very lucid patent memories of 2 different lives. There may be more, but she was a plantation woman in the South,
right?
During Civil War time, and like she has like memories of like recipes that she's never learned and shit like this. And then she also has memories of living in feudal Japan. And for a while there, we were planning a trip to Japan, and I wanted to take her to the places where she thinks she lived, because it'd be really neat to see her, immediately go to some place and like, oh yeah, I had an experience like that with a dog of all things. I'm one of these, there's debate about whether animals have souls. I'm a believer that they do.
Yeah.
I may be wrong. I don't want to piss anybody off. These are my beliefs.
Absolutely.
But I had this shelter dog that I adopted, and he was, worthless little mutt, but I loved him to death. He was my friend Bart. And I adopted him when he was 4 years old, because nobody in the shelter seemed to want the old dog. And we became like close friends. And going through my divorce, he was there. And, bottom line, he was my best friend, like dogs should be. And when he passed, it was pretty rough on me, because I was a bachelor at that point, and, wasn't coping real well with stuff. And ultimately, when I kind of got to the point where I could leave the house and accept the fact the dog was gone, I took some extra food that I had bought for him, and I took it to the pet store where I bought it from to exchange it for credit. And I went to the vet's office, and at the time my dog died, he was diabetic. He had pancreatic cancer, and I donated the leftover insulin and syringes to the vet's office. I'm like, somebody may not be able to afford this. Let them have it, Well, I ended up going to the pet store to do that exchange for the credit, and they have a doggy daycare there. And ironically, my dog Cora goes there all the time now. She's like the bitch that runs the daycare. I walked up to this big, 20 by 10 foot glass window where you can see the dogs playing, and there was this German Shepherd pup that just like was laser focused on what I was doing, like ignoring everybody else in the store, just laser focused on me. And I'm like, well, he's pretty cute. And I kind of squatted down. I looked at him, and there's something about his eyes. Like he had the same eyes that my dog did. And my dog wasn't a shepherd. He was a border terrier mutt.
Right.
But like the eyes, like it was the same damn eyes. And one of the people that runs the doggy daycare came by, and I said, how old is that shepherd? And she goes, oh, he's 4 months now. And I said, wow. 4 months to the day was when my dog had died.
Wow.
And I am firmly convinced that he was immediately plucked out of his existence and plucked into the birth of this dog. You can't convince me otherwise. And of course, he was somebody else's dog. I could never have him or anything like that. So he's gonna, he's being a good boy for somebody else's family.
Right.
But you cannot convince me that was not my damn dog.
Yeah. And that's, that's weird. So like when my wife's dad,
and neither could the security guard that was chasing him out of the store.
I've got a hair lip from the taser at this point, but
so my wife's dad died when my second son, my youngest son, whenever he was only around, he was still in the belly, but my wife was about 4 or 5 months pregnant. We had just found out we were having a boy, actually, the day before the funeral. We found out we were having a boy. And, it's very crazy because, like, everyone says that when as soon as they look at him, like, oh, that's Dean reincarnated. It's my wife's dad's name. It's like, that's him. 100% that's him. And who knows,
Yeah. You had a very cool thought about reincarnation and about the light.
Oh yeah. Talking about people say when you're born, you see a light, you see a light come in
when you die.
or when you die, you see a light.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
You
there's
see when you're born too, but that's something else.
well, what this theory is that the light you see when you die, if you believe that, is the light you're seeing as you're being born back into the world. That light, the bright light that hits your face whenever you're being reincarnated, basically. It's the same.
So just
thing.
think about that. When you die, you got to climb back out your mom's vaginal canal.
No wonder it's so traumatic.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I go too far there?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Wrong show, JT.
This is DAExMachiNation, not triple X Machina.
So I have an interesting one for you too. So one of my dogs that the show's seen before is a German Shepherd Husky mix. Her name's Cora. She's our zany little husky dog. When I was in 7th grade, I drew her in art class.
The dog you have now?
And, the dog I have now. So in 7th grade, how much I was going to show up. I wasn't a great artist, guys. I apologize. But in 7th grade, I drew this dog from memory. I didn't own this dog. I don't even know what kind of dog it is. But I drew this dog.
Wow.
That's pretty crazy.
That's cool.
My wife found her on the side of the road in Tennessee, starving with her brother.
Wow.
What were the chances?
That's cool.
That's very cool.
And as a puppy, it never hit me. But when she grew up, I was like, oh my God, it's the same dang dog.
Wow.
See, I wish that would happen to me because when I was in that age, I was drawing boobies everywhere.
Well, those are further down the book, actually.
And I don't ever get to see those.
Big titty blonde chicks don't just fall from the sky, you know.
Sorry, I opened it up for JT to push it way too far.
Yeah. That's what you get. You open the door, I'm going to walk through it, buddy.
Oh, man. But no, I'm a firm believer that it's so crazy the way everything is connected, yet people think, so sometimes when I hear people, this is why me and JT get into kind of not really arguments. We've never really argued about it, but we have discussions about like science and
hearty conversations.
Yeah. Well, like science and the paranormal and things like that, right?
Yeah.
Because spirited discourse.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
there it is. There it is.
I don't think we've ever gotten to an argument in the 10 years.
You've never told me fuck you and stomped off. So
I mean, I've said fuck you a lot.
We've gotten close, but
so what I'm saying is, how can you believe, like people believe in a simulation theory, right? Mm-hmm. But yet they don't want to believe that there's ghosts or that there's a chance that your soul, how can you believe this and not?
And I'm going to go here without going there. People, how can you believe in religion and Christ and God and all this, but you don't believe in ghosts and witchcraft and,
right.
Reincarnation, there's a lot of things that bother me there, and those are the things we like to talk about.
Well, and we got more common ground than we think, there's a lot of overlap. I had the pleasure of taking care of an Afghani gentleman in the urgent care one day, and he was actually a pretty cool dude. He's somewhat of a celebrity. He was one of the Afghani translators that worked with the special forces units over there as a teenager. The New York Times did an article on him and his family.
Nice.
Long story short, after the New York Times outed him, off the books military event occurred to get him out of Afghanistan so he and his family wouldn't fall victim to the Taliban. And so I got to take care of his wife, and I got to meet him, and he's a pretty cool dude. And as things happen at 3 a.m. in the urgent care, we got into a discussion about religion, and he asked if would they discharge if we could be friends. And I said, our official policy is for security reasons we don't engage with patients on social media or whatever. I said, but I'm a big boy, I can decide who my friends are.
Right.
And so I traded information with him, and as he was leaving, he goes, you're my favorite kind of Christian. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, you're not judgmental. He goes, we all worship the same God. We just call him different names.
Right.
And he gave me a big hug and he walked out. And I was like, okay, yeah. There's some differences. You know, I mean, he's not going to convert me to Islam, but yeah. And it was, you know, it was a really, really neat encounter.
It's like Chris Ledoux said, you know, there's a lot of people who don't always see eye to eye, but I bet they sat down and had a conversation with each other. You see, you had a lot more in common than you think.
Yeah.
You know, it's and I've learned, unfortunately, some of the, you know, the people that you would think would understand that don't, but there's good and bad in everywhere, every race, color, creed, religion, everything. There's just bad people, you know. You get 100 people, one person's going to be an asshole, right. You know.
and it's funny. That's what makes it work for Ryan and I, because
he's an asshole.
I'm an asshole. But I look at things in more of a scientific view. But I do believe in certain things. And the reason why I do believe in certain things is because I've experienced some things. But I try and look at everything scientifically, you know, and so him and I argue about science a lot because he's not a big proponent of science.
Some of it.
You know, he's a flat earther.
Definitely not flat earther.
No, just kidding.
But you know,
but that's why we get along so good, you know, is we have different opinions, but we find middle ground, you know.
Right. And which you should be able to.
Right.
You know?
Oh yeah. The lost art nowadays.
Here's the problem on both sides. And this is both sides. This is Christian and non-Christian and anything you want to say. I'm a Christian, but just because I believe that one way does not mean that I look at somebody who believes differently than me and says, oh, well, you know,
right.
You have the right to believe any way you want to believe. Just because I believe my way is the right way does not mean I'm going to think that you're any less of a person for believing differently than me.
Right.
I may not agree with what you believe, but you have the right to believe what you want to believe.
Absolutely.
And that's the problem on both sides, because there's people on both sides that believe that you don't have the right to believe different ways. Now, we're not big on talking religion on this show, and for reasons.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that's the problem, because then that's wise, because it always devolves into an argument.
Mm-hmm.
Religion or politics, either one.
Yeah, exactly, and it is what it is. I mean, nothing that anybody says is going to change the way I believe. And nothing that I say is more than likely going to change anything that that anybody else believes. Right. So why do we have to argue about it?
Right. I talk to people all the time about paranormal stuff because I wholeheartedly believe in it, because I've experienced some stuff throughout my life. What I've noticed with people is people are usually, you get one or two people. You get the people that tell you you're a liar, and then the other people that think you're a liar but won't actually tell you that you are. It just, it's a personal thing, and when it comes to religion, what's the adage, like, snake change its color, zebra change its stripe, or something like that. I don't know, there's a quote.
Leopard can't change its spots.
Yeah. When I was younger, when I was in my 20s, I tried to go the religious route. And my problem was I had too many questions that couldn't get answered. And it was nobody's fault. It wasn't my fault. It wasn't, the pastor's fault. It wasn't anybody's fault. It was just, this book and I don't see eye to eye. I don't want to say that I'm not a Christian, but I don't want to say that I am. I believe that there's something happened here. Something created this. This did not just happen on accident. Even, and this is going to drive Ryan crazy, science will tell you the chances of the Big Bang Theory creating this planet and creating an environment that will sustain life, and then be able to create those building blocks of life and push those forward and move it into a direction like where we are today, the chances of that happening are so slim. You would have a better chance of a tornado going through a salvage yard and building a 747. Something had to. This didn't.
Intelligent design.
All this awesomeness didn't come from nothing.
Yes, absolutely.
But no, I'm with you. I don't really talk too much on religion on anything, mainly because I agree with you. Like, there's just no sense in talking about politics or religion because everyone got their own beliefs and stuff. I've had conversations with people, and we're having a great conversation. We talk for an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Don't get me on politics because I voted for pizza the other night and I lost.
But like, we've had conversations forever, and then at the end of it, they're like, "So, do you believe in this?" I'm like, "Oh no, I don't believe in that."
Yeah.
And then they look at you completely different.
Yes.
They just had a great conversation with you. You guys are, laughing and just having a great time. And you say one thing, and they're like, "Oh."
Let's say that's what I'm talking about. You have to be able to. You have to be able to agree to disagree.
Right. Absolutely.
Like,
absolutely.
You know, me, Doc, DA, and Steve are all very close. We all believe roughly the same thing when it comes. Let's go back to cryptids. We all believe roughly the same thing, but there are certain things that DA may believe about cryptids that I don't necessarily prescribe to, and Doc may have a different view, and then Steve, like he said, he's the agnostic of the group, or he was until he went out to Combs Ferry that night. He's kind of moved a little bit closer to the other side now.
Right.
But
I'm the only one who hasn't had a true encounter.
But
the rest of y'all have had one. You know,
it doesn't matter that Steve may have not had an encounter like the three of us have had. Doc hadn't had an encounter until the last time we went out to Moon Valley. And Doc actually had, he actually saw stuff on thermal that, what was your line, Doc?
Thermal don't lie.
Thermal don't lie. If I had $1 for every time I heard that, when we got back to the hotel room, we'd be fine right now. We wouldn't have to worry about money.
One of the most low-key people I've ever met in my life, and talking to him the next day at the pub, he was like, do one of these, show me the drawing, this stuff. And it was like, he was 100% in that moment.
But it's a paradigm changing moment.
But the thing
is,
if you look at
smell
that,
the clutch burn when you shift to paradigms.
If you look at that in terms of what we're talking about earlier, there are people in religion, there are people and others that feel as strongly about that as Doc felt about his, so who am I to say that an experience that somebody else had is not as real to them as an experience that I've had to me.
Right.
So if I've had a religious experience and that has touched my heart and that has changed my heart, then, if somebody says, "Oh, you're stupid," or "You're wrong," or "You're crazy," that's just like me. I've never had a paranormal experience. Doc's had a paranormal experience. DA's had them, or DA's had them and Doc's had them. But I can't say that hasn't or doesn't happen just because I haven't had it. It goes back to the teaspoon of of ocean water. Well, there's no sharks in there, so sharks must not exist.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what we've always. That's kind of actually what we've always talked about is that when people say they don't believe in something, we talk about the paranormal and stuff like that. We believe that it's a personal thing. It's something that, it's something that you're not going to get it like how much someone actually believes in that because they've it's their experience. You know what I mean?
Well, and the easy thing to that is, like you say, you take this circle here and you say this circle represents everything that's known in the universe.
Right.
If this was every bit of knowledge in the universe, how big would what be represented inside this circle?
Right. You mean
Right.
Would you even be able to see it?
right?
Right.
So how can I say that outside of what I know, God doesn't exist?
Yeah.
Or ghosts or Bigfoot or anything. I can't say that. I have faith that God exists. I have faith that Bigfoot exists. I don't know that ghosts exist because I've never had any witness of that.
Right.
But I can't say representationally of what I know compared to this whole big circle. I can't say that they don't. I can't prove that they don't.
Well, with what Ryan was discussing earlier with the planes of existence, what about the other side of that coaster?
Right.
Exactly.
100%. Yep. And that's what I'm saying. There's so much more to this world. That's why I don't get into too much outside of, there's just so much in this world, and then in human beings themselves, that why waste the time talking about some other stuff whenever there's so much right here. And it's funny. It just popped in my head. I'm like, the real question we need to be asking ourselves is Jesus a zombie?
Well, one thing that always struck me as the show started evolving, especially when Robbie and Doc were regular hosts on the show, is our world exists as a great big Venn diagram. You got the overlapping circles or whatever, and it seems like as I've gotten older, maybe it's just because I'm an old fuck, it seems like the overlapping areas are getting smaller and smaller. I disagree, so I hate you. Right. I don't have your beliefs on cryptids, so we can't be friends. I think you're nuts, whatever. Our goal in this show, to a certain extent, and to a very large extent, in my opinion, is to make those overlaps bigger and bigger. If we do our jobs right, it's going to be just, a bunch of overlap circles like a slinky.
Right.
It won't be this spread.
Right. And that's what we were talking about earlier about
we've lost discourse somewhere.
Yeah.
As a society.
Like it depends on the group you're with. Like you guys, all four of you guys and Ryan and I sitting here, we can talk about anything we want, and I'm going to believe you. You may or may not believe me, but I'm going to tell you my story. When we went to this paranormal convention, we were in there with a lot of like-minded people, and your circle got bigger. Your overlap got bigger. You walk out of there and start talking to the security guard in the parking lot who's yelling at you for smoking your cigar, and your circle's not so big anymore.
But like you said, there's a discord. There's no reason that I have always been the type person that I'll talk to you about. I am a big on respect. I respect as long as you're not hurting a child or anyone else for no reason. I'll talk to you about whatever, and I like talking to people about what they believe and things they've seen because I keep an open mind, and it's interesting. Like, it's crazy that people just think that there's nothing out there, and to meet people who have open minds and can actually talk to you without having an argument or fighting, it's crazy. It's what's funny is that only happens mainly on the keyboard. People typing.
Keyboard warrior.
Because when you talk to someone like we're talking now, and you meet someone in person, it just seems that it's personal. It's more personal. You can feel what someone else is feeling, and you can get the vibe off of them, whether or not they're mad or if it's a bot. Honestly, you don't know online anymore. You don't know if it's just some random generated thing that's making stupid posts, So I like talking to people like this,
Oh, sure. Well, I mean, until tonight, Ryan, I had never once, with my beliefs of near-death experiences, in my wildest perceptions, could have been, this could be caused by a Schedule I psychedelic drug, this DMT. Never would have thought it. But now that I met you and we've talked the last couple of hours, I'm like, I'm down with it. That's a possibility. Yeah, I'm okay with it. It's on my checklist,
Yeah, and that's kind of where I'm at, because there
are studies on that.
And they do they're doing that with a lot of soldiers now with brain injuries, traumatic brain injuries, doing with the mushrooms. They're microdosing, and it's kind of helping them psilocybin. It's kind of helping them get over what happened to them and stuff like that.
Just nowadays it's so hard to find. AI and everything else has screwed up the repository of knowledge, where everybody's like, follow the science. It's hard sometimes because you don't know what you're looking at as the true trail.
Right.
And most people don't quote unquote do their own research. They're not going to academic journals and doing literature reviews and things like this, like Doc and I had to do in nursing school. God bless it.
He's like, no.
We're getting on Chat GPT, and it's like, oh well, Chat GPT says that's nice. That's only as good as the person that loaded it. Wikipedia is only as good as the person who loaded it.
Right.
And so that pathway just never was presented to me where I've had a reliable lead to follow it.
Right. Yeah,
and now you still don't because you heard it from Ryan.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, I was kind of on the fence about him when I found out he wasn't a drinker. I mean, to be honest,
right.
It's
you know what? Yeah. I don't know. I'm just honestly that is from just me. I'm very weird about like being in control of my
I'm absolutely
my functions and all that. It's just I've always been there. It's crazy, but I mean,
well, when Dia and I first started talking the podcast years ago as kind of a vehicle for his books, I'm like, well, what are we gonna do in this podcast? Well, we're gonna sit there and like we do here, we're just gonna have some drinks and talk about books, my books, other people's books, what the books are about. And I was like, so basically, it's going to be the two of us sitting here drinking, socializing, and people are going to watch this. He goes, yeah, it'll be like two assholes now waiting. And that was almost the name for it. And so it's kind of a running thing that in a typical show, somebody's got alcohol somewhere, if not multiple people in multiple places, but it's not a requirement. You're a member of the DAExMachiNation, even as a teetotal or whatever,
Yeah, JT used to drink like that, but
yeah, I was a raging alcoholic. I had to quit. It was funny because we would start doing the show and I would start drinking, and by the end of the show, I couldn't even talk. I'd be so.
He can't talk now, and he's sober.
Yeah. And I've been sober for a long time now.
Well, no, congratulations. It's a hard.
It is. It was
addiction is a thing.
And it's funny. Whenever I quit, it was one of those things of, I'm gonna lay off of it for a while. I'm gonna see how long I can go, and here I am. I'm 2.5 years into it. So,
yeah, that's 100% awesome. I'm proud of you, man. Seriously.
Well, thank you.
That's huge.
Now let's move to aliens. Let's talk about aliens.
Something completely different.
So you guys keep talking about this drop of water. I think what you guys are coming into is there was a discussion by a bunch of astrophysicists, and they were talking about all the advancements we've had in learning about space, because we know so little about it. And what they were talking about was somehow they got on the conversation about alien life. And one of the astrophysicists, and I'm sorry, I cannot remember her name to save my soul. I've been trying to think of it all night, but she made a statement that really rang true. And this is where your water thing comes in. She said, we see such a small portion of the known universe that would be like us taking a glass of water out of the ocean. We know there's fish in the ocean, but there's no fish in this glass. That's about all we can see out of space is a glass of water worth of space.
If that.
If that much. So what we're looking at is, basically what they claim is we can only see it's about the size of a grain of sand when it comes to the
bottom of the ocean. We know more about the topography of the moon than we know about the bottom of the ocean.
Correct.
People are like, well, Megalodon's extinct, or there are no giant squid or whatever. Do you really know that?
Right.
Really?
No. Yeah.
I love living in the what if.
Yeah. Yeah. And that happens a lot, you know. But sorry, Robbie. It's kind of like religion. You got to have faith. But yeah, no, you're absolutely right. We know more about the moon than we do the ocean floor. And it's because we can't get there. Now, there are people that think we've never been to the moon. I personally feel like we've been there, but I don't know. I wasn't there. I didn't get.
I wasn't alive in 1969, so
I was, so. But why lie? Well,
don't get into this conversation.
Never mind. I know why I lie, because it's our government and that's what they do. Oh shit, the power just went out. Oh
look, Men in Black.
But yeah, here's why I bring this up, because I really want to know, fellas. We've lost Doc now.
No, he's got some. He's got a storm coming.
He's got storms coming on. He's got stuff blowing around all over his house.
He's like, fuck these
Poor
guys.
guy.
Jesus Christ. No. What you guys' thoughts on aliens?
I believe they exist. I mean, we'd be kind of stupid to think we're the only intelligent life in the universe.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think it'd be an awful waste of space if there's no other intelligent life out there.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not sure if I believe that somebody, traveled hundreds of light years to inspect the inside of my asshole. But
Man,
it's open time.
it would be nice.
I feel pretty special. But
maybe.
Shit, my doctor did it last week and only cost me like $4,000. Well,
yeah. I definitely feel like there's a gap in our healthcare. Women get all that stuff and we get this.
Yeah.
Right.
But no, I really, there's got to be more out there than just us.
Yeah.
And if you believe in intelligent design, do you really feel comfortable putting all your eggs in one basket with us?
Yeah.
I mean, if we were the grand experiment of some great architect, let's be honest, we're kind of fucking it up.
Yeah,
Well, and
absolutely.
Let's face it, we're the East St. Louis of the universe. Everybody all the aliens lock their doors when they go past our planet.
Yeah.
Seriously. Yeah, if they could surveil us, kind of like the Vulcans supposedly were in Star Trek, before First Contact, we'd be locking the doors, be like, we're gonna go quiet.
They'd be driving past us looking the other way, like when you got the fucking homeless guy standing on the street corner wanting a donation.
Yeah.
I
hide behind the B pillar in the car as you're driving down.
I'm not looking at you.
So if you think about it, there's belief out there that we once were super highly intelligent, and that's how they made the pyramids and stuff like that, and Atlantis and things like that. But then a catastrophic event happened, wiped it all out, and we're kind of coming back from that.
Well, look at what they recently discovered underneath the pyramids.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They're talking about how they think the entire thing was a massive storage battery.
Yeah,
Well,
it's LiDAR.
even
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
on a more recent time frame, 50 years ago, the owner's manual of a car told you how to adjust the engine timing.
Right.
Currently, the owner's manual of a car tells you not to drink the battery.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, and that's in 50 years.
Right.
Oh, and now you don't even get an owner's manual.
Well,
because most people can't read it.
Well, I was going to say, I can't. I mean, I feel like I'm a relatively intelligent individual. I can't adjust the timing of my car.
Mm-mm.
I don't even know it's a thing with modern
Well, now you
cars.
don't need to.
I legit don't know. But I mean, that's in 50 years' time.
Right.
What could have happened over tens of thousands?
Right.
Well, yeah, there's been theory here lately that the pyramids in Egypt are way older than we originally thought they were.
Yeah.
I think
Well,
all of them.
Stonehenge. Every time
Right.
they try to do an assay of it, they're like, well, it's built in pre-Christian UK. Okay, then you know, start doing some more research. No, it was thousands of years old then. What?
Yeah.
Well, look at things like the Antikythera device. They found in the wreckage. I believe it was a Roman ship. For the longest time, they had no clue what it was. Turns out it's a very complicated timepiece-like computer that predicts, solar rotations.
Yeah, it's a clockwork computer.
And position stars.
That's crazy. You need to quit drinking, dude.
Tiny ladder.
Yeah. But you guys were talking about Egypt. There's actually there's an area, it's some sort of coliseum there, that the floor of this coliseum is made of 3 separate granite slabs, and each granite slabs weighs somewhere around 50 tons or something like that. And I don't remember the exact numbers on it, but what was weird is these 3 granite slabs are perfectly square. They have no mortar between them. They're a perfectly straight seam, and they're 6 feet off the ground. There's no way that the Egyptians could have ever placed these slabs where they're placed. And what this thing actually looks like is it looks like it could have been possibly some sort of like landing pad or something for some sort of ship. Now, that's the kind of stuff that really trips me out. Wore her Wild Hunt hoodie. Nice. Speaking of Wild Hunt, yeah, what was the name of that? God, I don't remember what that was.
I know the place you're talking about, and I cannot think.
Yeah, it's some sort of, and it's massive too.
Talking about me when I'm not around.
Yeah, you really were. Yeah. But yeah, there's just so much stuff. Have you guys looked at the keyhole theory? All the keyholes that are all over the earth, the keyhole shapes. That's another weird one.
We need to show on that one because that sounds interesting. I've never heard of it.
Yeah, so there are a lot of keyhole patterns all over the globe. There's a lot. If you just Google keyhole theory, you'll notice it. A lot of them are man-made, but a lot of them are natural, and it's really strange. Like there's a lot in Japan. They have these keyhole designs that you can only truly see these things from the air. But what the theory there is these things were built, tens of thousands of years ago, and they could have possibly been like a roadmap for space travelers.
Kind of like the Nazca lines?
Like the Nazca lines. The Nazca lines can only be seen from space.
From the air.
Or from the air. Right.
Oh, lost talking. That storm must be kicking his butt.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
We're supposed to have another line of storms coming through here tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah, they say all of these things are like the ones in Japan are 400 meters long.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys have heard, but we got hit pretty hard by rain down this way. The rivers are all overflowing. Table Rock Lake is about the highest I've ever seen it.
Table Rock has 8 floodgates open right now, trying to drain it out.
Wow.
Which means
I've never seen 8 gates open.
Which means Lake Taneycomo is going to have them open on its end too, otherwise it's going to fill.
Well, Bull Shoals is 25 feet above where it's supposed to be right now because it's all running down there.
Dang.
The Finley River through Ozark has flooded a lot of the lower part of town.
Well, DA, you're gonna kill me. But just a couple weeks ago, my wife and I went to Murray, Kentucky for a graduation. Her cousin, niece, I don't know what you'd classify her as, was graduating from Murray State down there. And we were down there and we were getting ready to leave. And her dad was like, oh, yeah, when we're down here, we go over to the lake all the time. I didn't realize how close I was to LBL.
You're practically on top of it.
Yeah, I had no idea I was that close to it. If I'd have known, I'd have tried to talk my wife into going over there because we were down there for the weekend, just to go see it. And as soon as he said that, I immediately thought of you. I'm like, oh my God, if DA was here, we'd be in the middle of that shit.
You'd probably be missing persons. We'd go in and get in over our head.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
They'd be able to track us down by the pile of brass.
Yeah.
Do what?
They'd be able to track us down by the pile of brass that I would leave.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know how they talk about cops and soldiers being the people that run towards gunfire? This group, minus myself, are the people that run towards cryptids. Robbie's one step away from, oh, that's a dogman, I want to pet it.
Right.
Whereas I see that stuff, and I kind of like Doc always just say, it's like, what does he say? It's a get the F out of here clock or something. He starts tapping his wrist.
Look at the time.
I want evidence, but I want somebody else to pick it up. I was not in my comfort zone with these guys. I will still go, and I still want to go again because I feel safe with these guys. They protected me pretty well the last time. But it takes a rare breed to do what these guys do. I'm also the only one who wasn't a soldier or a cop. So,
I'm definitely, I've never been a cop or a soldier. Supposed to go to the Marines, but ended up not going with my wife, which we've been together 25 years now at the time. She's like, I don't want you to go. And I'm like, all right. Yeah. But, anyways, like I'm that way. I am like, let's go find out what the hell this is. I'm strapped. Stay strapped or get clapped, as they say. And I'm a firm believer of if it doesn't have a head, it can't get you.
Yeah.
So,
well,
see, and I'm like Steve. If you guys were going to go out into the woods and do something, I would want to be the guy that was over here in the camper doing the research.
When we went down to Combs Ferry, as we're leaving,
absolutely,
DA goes, well, it's a campground. I wouldn't bring anything you can't conceal, but it's woolly, it's decommissioned. You might want to pack accordingly. And so I came packed for meth head or coyote.
Yeah.
And I had a 9mm and a couple extra magazines and an easy way to get to it. And I could have messed up a pack of coyotes pretty damn good.
Unfortunately,
when we saw
and we were all armed.
When we saw the manually disarticulated deer carcass hanging 8 feet up a tree that a mountain lion couldn't climb. At that point, as I said earlier, you could smell the rubber when I burnt the clutch at my paradigm shift. I looked at my 9mm and thought about myself, kind of like in Jaws, you're going to need a bigger boat. I'm like, you're going to need a bigger gun.
Yeah.
And of course, at that time, I was also walking 2 miles on a broken leg that I didn't know about. And so I was hurting and wasn't feeling so great and really feeling a little bit victimish as the sounds are getting closer to us and I'm limping. I'm like,
this is not good.
Thankfully, these guys followed the fat electrician and they felt to themselves, nobody gets Doc. And I was the medic at that point.
We put him in the middle of the group and surrounded him.
Nobody touches Doc. The real Doc, who's currently fighting, Hurricane Denver here, wasn't available to come down. So I was the next best thing. And I was Doc and they protected me, thank God. I'm seeing myself getting picked off horror movie style.
Load out too.
What was that?
Since Steve was hurt.
First boat out.
First boat load out.
Oh yeah. Oh, I was hurting so bad.
Yeah, I'm ready to get out in the field and start doing some stuff.
Yeah, we've talked numerous times about coming down to Springfield and trying to hook up
the places to take you boys.
Right now, the only fields I ever deal with are baseball fields.
Yeah.
Raleigh ain't that far, and DA and I live across town from each other.
Right. Dad life, that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Hey, man, nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
My youngest is 26, so I don't have to worry about stuff like that.
Well, mine's 10 years ago, your age, we were there too.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, mine's just turned. This is his first year playing travel ball, and he plays on 2 different teams, so it's just year round, nonstop. So I like it though. It's fun watching them grow and learn and all that good stuff. You know, that's the good part about it. And then just not having any free time whatsoever is.
But enjoy those memories while you're making them.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Link and he would be as big as you.
I wouldn't change it for the world, man. You know, but I would like to.
It'll mean that much to him too. Seriously.
Oh yeah.
You know, my father's still living. I'm blessed he's still alive. But you know, growing up, he wasn't always there, just for various reasons. And I was telling DA one day, if I get a phone call from my dad and says, "Hey, I'm in town. You want to go play catch?" I would go and buy a fucking ball glove and call him to work.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm almost 50 years old. You know, that it's going to mean so much to him. Seriously, it's going to mean so much.
Man. Yeah. You know, that's kind of what I'm a firm believer in, being happy in life, you know, and taking care of you and yours. But I also, I want to make some time for my friend. Like, we end up getting pretty close with DA, and we just hadn't talked to him in forever. And, you know, and it's just, I hate not talking to some of the people that I actually want to talk to. I haven't talked to him in forever.
Yeah, I mean, we text back and forth quite a bit, but yeah, I mean, we used to get together every week, and God, we haven't been together.
Always heard that, but we just had a hell of a roll of thunder over the house.
Wow.
Yay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm fixing to get out, guys. Honestly, I gotta get it back to the house, but JT can stay on as long as whatever.
We'll start winding things down. We usually only go about 2 hours anyway, but I'm afraid I might lose everything if that storm keeps.
Right.
I don't want to just disappear, because then everything will be all screwed up when we try to shut the show down. But
it's so pretty.
We have had a blast hanging out with you guys tonight.
So pretty, DA.
It's always a hoot hanging around with you guys, because I never know where the conversation's going to go.
You never know what's going to come out of my mouth.
If I offended anybody, I apologize. I just I actually think I've done very well tonight.
Yeah, you've done well. I, on the other hand, have went off the deep end.
We all go off the deep end from time to time.
Well, hopefully Mark's all right. I'm
not
going to say bye to him because he's not in here, but hopefully he's good.
So we'll check on him after the show. I'll give him a call, make sure he's all right.
He sent me a text. He's got a bunch of hail going on. So he said he wasn't even going to try to get back on because he done get kicked off twice.
Right. His internet signal sucks.
Let him know we said good to officially
good to talk to him.
Will do. We're gonna start winding things down, folks. Make sure you check out Horror Chronicles. How often do you guys put out your shows?
We haven't put out anything in a while. We've been taking a break.
We used to do it every single week, and it's just, like I said, I work 6 days a week, and then when I'm not at work, it's all time.
Yeah.
But you can check out Horror Chronicles right here. Horror Chronicles right here on YouTube. Over and check out some of their old shows. I've been on a few.
Oh, there's definitely a lot of good stuff there too.
Yeah.
You know,
they've got a lot of awesome stuff on there. But you can definitely check them out. And we're going to start winding things down. And as we bring the show to an end, one of the things that I always like to talk about before we go is a subject that's very near and dear to my heart, and that's the 22 a Day Foundation. We're losing 22 veterans a day to suicide, and that is 22 too many. So if you've got a friend who's a veteran or still active duty or first responder in any capacity, somebody that wears a uniform that puts it all on the line for us, reach out to them, let them know you're thinking about them, let them know you care, because we can get 22 a day down to 0. And that is the ultimate goal. So let them know you're thinking about them, let them know you care. And again, let's get 22 a day down to 0. And as we wind the show up, and doesn't matter what you're drinking, I hope you guys will grab a glass with me. I'm going to have a little bourbon as I finished all my mead. But
and you can still talk.
Yeah. Well, it was.
We've had a lot of practice over the years.
Now, but we've been ending the show with a quote. And it's something I'm kind of proud of and something I hope that we keep doing for a while. But it's from an old Irish drinking song. The song's called The Parting Glass. When you think about it, when you listen to the lyrics of the song, it's not just about saying goodbye to those that you're leaving at the bar at the end of the night. It's about saying goodbye to the ones we've lost along the way. And that's all the more important with Memorial Day coming up here on Monday. Because Memorial Day is the day we remember those who paid the ultimate sacrifice. Veterans Day is when, thank people for the service. Memorial Day is for the ones we lost. And so when we close the show out to the chorus from the Parting Glass, each of us.
DA, will you about my uncle?
Oh, yeah. We found out just before the show that Robbie's uncle has prostate cancer. So
Sorry to hear that.
Keep him in his prayers. They're saying it's 97% treatable, and they're going after it aggressively early. So I'd say his chances of coming through it well are good, but still, every prayer helps. And keep praying for Miss Lene as well. But we're going to close her out with the toast. And I hope you guys, if you haven't heard this song before, go on Google, go on YouTube and look up The Parting Glass. There's about 1,000 versions, but they're all good. Beautiful song, and it's a haunting tune. And the chorus says, "But since it fell into my lot that I should rise and you should not, I'll gently rise and softly call. Good night and joy be to you all." Good night, everyone. Slanja Ma, and happy Memorial Day.
Good night, guys.
Thank you for joining us. Catch us again Wednesdays and Saturdays on DAExMachiNation. A special thanks to all our channel members and Patreon supporters. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe.
My ears ain't been in there.